Hi everyone, Travis here with Lakeside Haus. If you're watching this video, it's because you rented the pontoon boat with us. Since we can't be here in person to give you the run through on how the boat itself works and some details about the lake, we're going to do this through a video. So it's imperative that we have everybody watch this through in its entirety, specifically because you want to know how the boat itself operates to make sure that you're running it safely, but also because Oxbow Lake, like many lakes around here, has numerous underwater hazards and shallow spots, and you definitely want to know how to target those and stay away from them. And we'll go through that a little bit in this video here once too. So stay tuned here once. We're going to kind of give you the full rundown. All right, first and foremost, we've got the kind of control center for the boat itself. Key goes down here in the right hand corner there, which obviously everybody should be familiar with the ignition if you're running the boat. We've got some toggle flip switches over here. We pretty much keep all of the middle ones down until you want to use one of those, which has the accessory port, which is not active on this one here. The radio, so if you want that, you can flip that one on. We'll cover that. Dock lights, and then navigation stuff as far as the lighting as well too. And then there's, of course, there's horn if you need to warn anybody. So once it's turned on, our gauge cluster, you got your battery, you got your miles per hour, fuel, which is obviously very important, RPMs on the boat itself, and then the trim. Trim refers to how high out of the water the engine is, because you can raise and lower the trim. Raise and lower it out of the water. Getting close to a hazard or really shallow water, it's wise to raise that up to get that out of the water a little bit. And then we've got our radio system. Okay, let's talk throttle control for a second here. So once we turn the ignition on, this is going to be our throttle control. There's a little button underneath that you'll need to depress as you move it forward or backwards. So in simple terms, you pull the trigger up, push forward, the boat goes forward. The further forward you push, the faster it's going to go. Likewise, reverse. A little bit reverse, backs up just a little bit. A lot, get you going to reverse quicker. This little button on the side, probably one of the most important buttons you're going to have, is the trim. So trim means the motor in and out of the water. It's up and down. So it can either be all the way down, which means it's all the way in the water, or if it's trimmed up, it's up out of the water. So we have a gauge right here, which actually is your trim as well. So you can see exactly where it's at without actually having to look at the engine itself. So if you find yourself getting into some shallow water, first thing you want to do, drop that thing in reverse and try to back her up a little bit. Probably at the same time, push that trim button up. Let's get that motor out of the water a little bit, so that way you're not going to hit the bottom of it. And then once you kind of get yourself into an area where you can drop it back down a little bit and get yourself out of there, that's what we're looking at doing. So keep an eye on that trim. If you're at any point giving it gas or throttling it up and you're seeing a lot of water spurting out the back, chances are you've got that motor tipped up out of the water a bit and it's just shooting water up. So you may want to just watch your trim and just remember, down means it's all the way down in the water, up means it's up out of the water. Okay, we equipped the pontoon with this Humminbird depth finder and GPS system. This should help you when you're out on the lake to know exactly where you're at. Also, we did go through and we marked some of the known hazards out on the lake to kind of help you out. So when you're cruising around, you can hopefully try to avoid these things. But when you first start it up, you press the power button, lower right-hand corner, right here. When it warms up, it'll get to this screen here, pressing exit to continue. So you press the exit button to continue. And then that brings you to your basic reading screen. So from here, if you press the top solid circle button, and sometimes you have to press it twice, it'll move you to one of the best screens that we would prefer that you were on. Left-hand screen is going to show you your depth, water temperature, your speed. The right-hand side is going to show you a real-time GPS map of where you're at in the lake, along with readings of the depths. In most scenarios, try to stick to the lightest color. That's going to be the deepest spots of the lake. The darker it gets, the shallower it gets. You really want to try to avoid the darker blue areas. You'll see that as we can scroll around here, we have marked some of the hazards with the yellow triangle with exclamation point. Those are areas you're going to want to avoid. There's also some areas on here, I'll see if I can find one, that may be marked with just something as simple as a black solid dot. There we go. Those are also hazards. For some reason, the icons just don't change on those. They're a different icon. Those are the same thing as the other ones. Those are areas that we know are either super shallow or have rock bars or stuff to that effect that you will hit. So these spots are not exact. So we ask that you give those kind of a wide berth, kind of go a ways outside of them there. You can see from the red line where we were out earlier today, it shows you the track where the boat was at. So avoid any of the black dots or the other areas that are marked with the yellow triangles, and try to stay away from the darker blue areas. Really try to keep yourself towards the light blue or white, whatever one you want to call that. To clear the route, if you ever want to, because by default it tracks your route, you can press over here the menu button and then scroll down until you see clear track, and then press to the right hand side, and then it say, do you want to clear it, yes or no? Right clears it again, and you can hit exit. So now it's gone. We also did mark back down here towards the beginning. We'll get back there. There it is. So we got the house marked here too. We're at the very end of the bay. If you actually zoom out, you can see that Oxbow Lake's a rather long, narrow lake. So we sit down at the very far end, and it kind of does this little curly Q all the way up. You can kind of see all those little black circles. Those are all hazards that we've kind of marked. Again, it's not all encompassing, but it's a good read for what we know for a fact. So, and then to power this down, all you have to do is press and hold the power button, and you'll see it pops up shutting down in 2 seconds, 1 second, and then it's off. And then we do have with it a neoprene cover, a rubber cover. So we ask that when you're not using it, just go ahead and replace this. It just slips right over the very front of it, just to protect it from any water and elements. Okay, let's go ahead and give it a start up, and then we're going to kind of show you how that works. So ignition gets turned to on, and then to start. So you should be able to hear the engine running at this point now, in the back there with the motor. We've got it trimmed all the way down, and before you take off, the one important thing you want to make sure is that you do see water, a small stream of it shooting out the side of the motor. And I'll turn the camera on here so you can see what that looks like. So that's an important thing to make sure it's doing, because that's what keeps the engine cooled down, and it's something that should absolutely be normal and something you should check every time before you take off. Beyond that, now you're free to make sure that you get your boat untied from the dock, and then start using the throttle and the steering wheel to kind of get yourself away from the shore. All right, on to the important stuff, radio operation. So to operate the radio, it's pretty straightforward. We have a toggle switch on the right-hand side of the steering wheel column. Flipped up means the radio is powered up. Flipped down means the power is off to it. Now, that doesn't mean it turns on the radio. That just gives it power. So make sure it's in the up position. And then if you'll notice, upper left-hand corner here has the power button that if you just press it for a second, radio will come on. Now, turn the radio down. Depending where it was left at from the prior person using it, this same button is also the source button, which means you can change it from FM radio, which is on right now, to, if you press it again, it goes through Pandora, which is not loaded on here. There's auxiliary if you need to plug in, if anything was plugged into the auxiliary units. And then I think the third or fourth time over, it goes to Bluetooth radio. So this is where you'd want to be at if you wanted to pair it to your phone and play music off your phone onto the radio. And then to power it off, same thing, just press the button for a second and it's off. We do recommend that when everybody's done at the end of the day, make sure these toggle switches are down, with the exception of the very first one stays right in the middle. All the other ones should be down, and then that way you know it's not going to run your battery dead on you. For fueling up the boat, we're at the rear of the boat right now. So at the very back end, you'll see there's the gas cap that's directly here. So when it's sitting right at the dock, you'll be able to fuel it correctly. The underside has a little button to push that pops it open. We've supplied you with 2 gas cans. They have some rather long clear tubing on them, makes it a little bit easier to get the tube into the hose instead of hole there to pour it, rather than trying to use one of a traditional gas cans. So you'll use that to gas them up. We'll leave both gas cans. They hold about 6 gallons each, so I'll give you about 12 gallons. That honestly is only about a half a fill up of the tank on here. It's a 22-gallon tank. You're gonna put in 12 gallons with that. So it's up to you if you want to make that trip a couple times to fill that up, depending on how quickly you're using it. And then when you've got it filled, just push it until it clips tight. And that's all you need to do to fill it up. And then the dashboard does have a gas gauge on it, so you can see exactly where the tank is at, both before you leave and to keep an eye on it when you're out in the water. We're down here on the dock itself, and the boat is docked. The best thing that you're going to have when you first kind of come here to do is it's going to be all tied up. It's going to all be properly placed for you. We have the bumpers all down for you, so nothing's going to get injured. But what you do have is a couple of these black boat bumpers. That's just to keep the boat from smacking up against the dock itself. There'll also be bow and stern lines at the front and the back of the boat that'll tie it to the dock. So before you use it, undo the bow lines, undo the stern lines, put those inside the boat so you have them. And then generally what you're going to do is you're going to have somebody in the captain's chair and somebody else out here that will make sure the door is open and can push the boat away from the dock. So they're going to give it a little bit of a push. Once it gets like 3 feet or so out, hopefully they can just step onto the boat itself and get you a little bit of distance, so that way you can get going. At that point, give it a little bit of gas and slowly start getting away from the dock itself. Okay, quick recap before you actually hit the water. Down at the dock, make sure you pull off your straps and anything tying it to the dock. Usually we have somebody sitting in the captain's chair, somebody else who will give the boat a little bit of a push away from the dock to get it out of there, and then hop on while still at a safe distance. Make sure you get all those doors shut once you're inside here. Make sure the engine's running, and then slowly get out of the bay area here. Couple quick other reminders. The lake has a 200-foot away from shore no wake zone, which means that you need to putt along at a pretty slow pace if you are within 200 feet of that shore. That's not a optional item. That is something that is rules and that you can get in trouble for if you get caught doing that. So make sure you do that. It's to help eliminate erosion of the shoreline. So that's an important thing to do. I'm going to hammer this down numerous times. The lake has a lot of shallow spots and numerous water hazards that you cannot see. Please, please, please rely heavily on the navigation unit that's in here with the depth finder, so that way you avoid hurting anybody else. The pain and struggle and embarrassment of having to paddle a boat back because you tore off the bottom of the motor, which can definitely happen, and then super expensive repairs. At the time of shooting this video, I can tell you that the engine costs about $9,000, and to repair them is not cheap. So as part of having and renting this pontoon is you're accepting liability for any repairs that might have to happen to that. So we definitely don't want to have that. We don't want the pontoon down, and we don't want any damage to it as well as you. So just keep that in mind. Really heavily rely on it. Make sure that when you're first getting out there, you're taking it slow on the lake. Take it slow. Get familiar with your routes, where you can and can't go. And we'll reiterate this again, but per insurance rules, we are not allowed to do tubing or water skiing behind this boat. So unfortunately, that is something that you cannot do. You'll just have to not do that when you're doing this. The pontoon is more for everybody getting on, sitting, relaxing, and enjoying a little bit of a nice cruise around the lake and then taking in the sights. So when you come back to dock, we recommend that you come out wide, and so that way you're kind of parallel coming in. You're going to want to come on in so that way the captain's side is out towards the water. Makes it a little more difficult because the doors are on the opposite side for people to get in and out. So you have to come in at the dock that way. So docking it makes it a little more difficult because as sitting here in the captain's chair, you can't see the front pontoons. So you have to rely on people in the boat helping you out, letting you know if you need to go in or out a little further. And then as you get right close to the dock, you should have a person too that's ready to hop out onto the dock, grab the boat and kind of steady it and bring it towards it. Make sure the bumpers are down on the outside of it so it doesn't bang the dock. And then there's ropes in the front corner and the back corner that you can just attach to the dock to make sure that it's secured. Definitely please make sure it stays secured and that you don't just loosely flop a rope around there or it will float away. So other than that, we want you guys to have an awesome time. I just want you to really make sure that you feel comfortable with all the rules and regulations and how it operates. If you have any questions at any point in time, you can reach out to us. You have our phone numbers, you have our email. We're happy to kind of give you some heads up on how things might work if you're curious or if you're having problems. So enjoy it. Thanks again for staying with us, and we hope you have a great time.